She stood by Dad's favorite chair, like it had always belonged to her, like her name was carved into the arms, even though she had barely visited him in the final year. She laughed softly, turning to the room to the cousins and uncles and family friends who had gathered after the service, and she said it again. Dad loved me more. Her voice was bright, casual, certain, like it was some sweet joke they'd all been in on for years. The room chuckled. Some smiled. One aunt nodded with what looked like agreement. I didn't say anything. I didn't laugh. I just held the teacup in my hand and listened. I had heard her say it before plenty of times. At birthdays, at weddings, even once when Dad was still alive and in the next room. I was his favorite. He always said I was the light in the room. And maybe he did. I wouldn't know. I wasn't in the room when he said it. I was usually the one setting the table, or washing dishes, or picking him up from a checkup, because she said her schedule was full. She had always been the golden one, the firstborn, the charming one. She was sunshine and I was steady. That's what Mom once said. You're our steady girl. Your sister brings the spark, but you hold the house up. I wasn't sure which of those things she meant as a compliment. Now here she was, claiming the chair, the attention, the story. She wiped a fake tear from the corner of her eye and said it again. I was always the one he came to. I looked around. No one corrected her. No one remembered the Thursday mornings when I sat with him on the porch, helping him fill out paperwork, or the nights I drove 30 minutes to bring his favorite soup. No one saw that part, and I never made them see. I had never said it aloud, not once, because I didn't think I needed to. But now, hearing her tell the story like I wasn't even part of it, I felt something shift. I reached into my bag and touched the envelope he had mailed me the week before he died. No one knew about it. He hadn't told anyone. It had arrived quietly, no return address, just my name in his handwriting. I hadn't opened it right away. I had waited. Maybe I didn't want to know what was inside. Maybe I was afraid it would confirm what she always said, that she was the one he loved more, that I had imagined our closeness, that I had built memories alone. But I opened it the night before the funeral. It wasn't long, just a page and a photo. The letter started with my name, just my name, written in the same steady print he used on our childhood lunchboxes. He said he didn't have much to leave behind. No real wealth, no land, just what people remembered. And he said he hoped I would remember that he saw me. Every time I drove out, every time I stayed late, every time I didn't make it about me. He said he wanted me to know that love doesn't always look loud. Sometimes it looks like consistency. He said I had been his breath when his lungs forgot how to hold air. That was the line that broke me. I didn't need money. I didn't need the house. I just needed to know he knew. And he did. The photo was of us on the porch, not posed, not smiling, just sitting. His hand on my knee, mine on his. A moment someone else must have captured. A quiet one, a real one. I slipped the letter back into my bag. I didn't say anything, not yet. Let her talk. Let her claim. Let her shine. Because she didn't know what he left me. And when she found out, it wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. It would be quiet. Steady. Just like the love she never noticed. She was the kind of child who filled every room she entered without trying. Grown-ups loved her. Teachers adored her. She danced into attention like she was born with a spotlight above her head. I learned early that to compete with her was to lose before I even opened my mouth. She could cry and get what she wanted. I could cry and be told I was too sensitive. She could forget her chores, and they would say she was busy. I could forget mine, and they would say I was careless. When she wanted a puppy, they said it would teach her responsibility. When I asked for one, 2 years later, they said dogs were too much work. I started to shrink in small ways. I stopped asking for things. I waited to speak. I said I was fine when I wasn't. I helped clean after dinner while she performed piano pieces for guests. People clapped for her. No one thanked me for clearing the plates. She was the golden child, and I was the girl in the doorway watching her shine. But I never resented her. Not really. Because when you are raised to see someone else's light as the sun itself, You begin to believe that warmth is borrowed, not earned. I thought maybe I didn't deserve to be looked at the same way. I thought maybe love just looked different for different daughters. And Dad, he never said anything to make me feel less. But he didn't say enough to make me feel equal either. He cheered her wins, he documented her recitals, he quoted her clever remarks. But he never talked about the nights I stayed up organizing his medicine box, or the time I stitched the rip in his favorite jacket without being asked. It wasn't that he didn't love me. It's that no one ever taught him how to love someone who didn't need to be the center of the room. He loved loudly because that's what the world praised. And she gave him those moments. I gave him quiet. And quiet isn't memorable unless it's missing. That's why when he got sick, I didn't expect anyone to notice who was showing up. She came to visit with flowers. I came with a notepad and questions for the nurse. She posted a photo on social media. I made sure his heating pad was working. She cried at the hospital once in front of everyone. I cried in the parking lot after pushing his wheelchair over a curb that almost tipped him. I didn't want an award, I just wanted to matter. And some days I wasn't even sure I did. But he started to say thank you more often. He started waiting for me to arrive before starting his meals. He started asking me to read to him. Not her. Me. It was subtle, small, but it meant everything. And then he wrote me the letter. The one I didn't know existed until it arrived. The one that changed everything. But back then, I didn't know he noticed. So when she bragged about being his favorite, I believed she was probably right. After all, she had the stories. I had the tasks. She had the shine. I had the shadows. But now I know he saw me. He saw it all. And he wrote it down. And that letter is the only thing that has ever made me feel like I wasn't just someone who kept the pieces together while she lived the version people wanted to watch. I think the saddest part of growing up in the same house, but different corners, is that you end up thinking you lived the same life. But you didn't. Not really. She lived a life where love was reflected back at her daily. I lived one where I had to squint into silence and convince myself I was seen. But the letter said I was. And now that he's gone, it is the only voice I have to remind me that I mattered too. I don't hate her. I don't even envy her. But I do wonder who I would have become if I had believed that love could be mine without apology. And maybe that's why I've held on to this letter so tightly. Not because of what it says about her, but because of what it finally says about me. After the funeral, she took over everything. The schedule for the estate meeting, the emails to the lawyer, the guest list for the gathering. She spoke with authority, with confidence, like she had already inherited the crown before the will was even read. She told stories about Dad, with her hand on her heart and her voice full of selective memory. She smiled when people praised her for stepping up, and when someone mentioned me, she changed the subject. I didn't interrupt. I let her talk. She always talked, and people always listened. But I knew something she didn't, that Dad had written me a letter, that he had sent it quietly, that he had chosen not to tell her, and that silence was not a mistake. It was the most deliberate thing he had ever done. I didn't wave the letter in her face. I didn't whisper about it to the family. I kept it close, in the drawer next to my bed, read it every night like a ritual, not because I needed to be reminded, but because I needed to prepare, because the day was coming when she would walk into that meeting expecting to be named first, and I would have to be ready to show her she wasn't the only one Dad loved enough to trust. She had started referring to the house as hers. She told our uncle she was planning to repaint. She told a neighbor she might tear out the roses because she never liked them. The ones Dad planted every spring, the ones I had watered when he couldn't. But she never liked them. So now they had to go. And no one questioned her. Because they believed her. They believed the way she said things, the way she tilted her head, the way she wrapped every word in confidence and charm. And I understood. Charm is easy to follow. Quieter truths take time. But I had time. I called Dad's lawyer, the one my sister didn't know he used. I asked if he had received anything from my father addressed to me. He paused, then said yes. A sealed document. Private. To be delivered in person only. He had tried to call after Dad passed, but my sister had already blocked off access. I made an appointment. I showed up early. sat in the waiting room with a tight chest and a calm face. He handed me the envelope. Heavy, cream-colored, my full name written on the front. Inside was a letter, similar to the one Dad mailed me, but longer, legal in language, specific in tone. He listed moments, dates, my name signed on check-ins, my voice in recordings. He had documented everything, quietly, carefully, in a way that told me this wasn't last minute. It was legacy. He said in the letter that love is not always obvious, that he had failed to balance the way it looked, but that he had tried to correct it here. He asked that I not fight, that I not shout, that I simply share what was written and let people decide who they believed. He included a picture, one I hadn't seen before. It was me and him, in the hospital. I was holding his hand. He was looking at me like I had saved something inside him. On the back, he had written, "This is the moment I knew she was home." The lawyer looked at me. "Do you want this read publicly?" he asked. I nodded. "When the time comes," I said. "Not before." I went home. I didn't tell her. I let her keep planning, keep boasting, keep using his name like a shield, because I had the truth, and truth does not beg. Truth does not rush. Truth waits. And when it arrives, it does not knock. It opens the door and stands there until people have no choice but to see. I looked at my sister differently after that. Not with anger, not even pity, but distance. Like someone watching a child build a tower out of sand right as the tide rolls in. She thought she was standing on something solid, but she never asked who was holding the ground beneath her. And that was her mistake, because now I had the ground, and I was ready. She arrived 10 minutes late, just enough to make sure all eyes were on her when she walked in. She wore black slacks, a cream blouse, and the diamond necklace Dad gave Mom on their 20th anniversary. She didn't ask permission to wear it. She never had to. She took the seat at the head of the long table in the conference room like it had been reserved for her. The lawyer didn't flinch. He simply glanced at the time and began. "We are gathered to formally review the final testament of Mr. Henry Wallace." My sister crossed her legs and leaned back with a smile that suggested she already knew what was inside the envelope. I sat 3 seats down, silent, steady. I didn't make eye contact. I didn't need to. The lawyer continued reading. The estate was modest, the house, the savings account, the small plot of land outside town. There were the usual clauses, minor gifts to distant cousins, donations to the church. Then came the house. Her posture straightened. He read aloud, "The primary residence is to be maintained under joint ownership unless otherwise agreed upon by both daughters." A flicker. She blinked once quickly. Given the long-standing contributions of both daughters, no single party shall assume full control without written consent of the other. She shifted, still composed but less certain. Then the lawyer lifted a second envelope. He tapped the seal gently. This was left separately, to be read aloud only if both daughters were present. I saw her eyes narrow. "Is that necessary?" she asked. "I mean, we've already gone through the main—" Her voice trailed as the lawyer opened the envelope. "These are your father's words, not mine." He read, "To my girls. If this is being read, I'm no longer here to hold both your hands, so I'll use words instead. I imagine the room feels heavy. Let me help carry some of that." The room went quiet. Even she didn't interrupt. The lawyer went on. "You both meant the world to me. One of you brought the light into every space. The other carried it when the room went dark. I know the world noticed one more than the other. I know I didn't always make that better. But I want it said clearly, I loved you both, but I trusted one." A pause. Not long, just long enough to let the sentence sit. "There is a letter my younger daughter received. I sent it quietly. She didn't ask for it. She didn't expect it, but she earned it. Not through noise, but through presence." My sister looked at me then. Really looked. She was the one who stayed. The one who asked no one to see her, but saw me. If she chooses to speak today, I ask that you all listen. If she chooses not to, then let that be her strength. Either way, know that this room does not belong to only one of you. It never did. The lawyer folded the paper. No one said anything. My sister cleared her throat. That was beautiful, she said. But her voice had changed. Softer, smaller. She tried to smile. Of course we were both important to him. That was never in question. But it had been. She had made sure of that. And now the doubt she had sown so confidently was unraveling in front of everyone. A cousin spoke up. You always said he picked you. Another added, you said you'd be sole heir. My sister's hands flattened against the table. I said what I thought was true. I didn't mean to. She looked at me again. I held her gaze this time. I didn't blink. I didn't smile. I didn't save her. I reached into my bag and placed the original letter Dad had mailed me on the table. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. They had already heard enough. But I wanted them to see it. The handwriting, the date, the seal. I watched the room shift again, this time toward me. Not in celebration, not in sympathy, just in recognition. I didn't say a word, because Dad already had. And for the first time, that was enough. The room emptied slowly. A few stayed behind to offer hugs or long looks of apology. Not words, just the kind of silence that says we see you now. My sister didn't leave. She stayed seated in Dad's chair, hands clasped in her lap like she was holding on to the last bit of something she thought was hers. She didn't look at me, not at first. Not when the lawyer packed his papers. Not when the last cousin walked out. But when I stood and reached for my coat, she finally said my name. Not loud, not pleading, just enough to make me pause. Did he write anything else, she asked? I didn't answer right away. I stepped closer. Held up the envelope again. There was a photo, I said. Of us. You weren't in it. She winced. Like that hurt more than the letter itself. I didn't know he felt that way, she whispered. I thought I was doing what he wanted. No, I said. You were doing what you wanted. You just assumed he did too. She didn't defend herself. That was new. She just nodded. And in that small motion, I saw the weight start to settle. Not guilt, not regret, but something heavier. The realization that love given loudly doesn't always mean love given more. I walked toward the door, my hand on the frame. He didn't leave me money, I said. He left me memory. You had the stage. I had the moments. Behind me, she let out a breath. Did he ever say he loved you more? I turned. No, I said. He never needed to. And then I left. I didn't look back. I didn't carry anger. I didn't carry victory, just the letter, the photo, and the quiet knowledge that I had been enough for him, exactly as I was.